Hello, you're listening to the Saluki Gamescast. This is episode 84 for Monday, June 17th, 2024. My name is Justin Young. Joining me as always are Alicia Utecht and Christina Ivey. How are you two doing?
It's that time in the summer. No, I'm just kidding.
June?
Listen, I have been...
Pride.
Pride.
June is that time of the summer.
For me, yeah, just because, I was at Pride Fest all day on Saturday from like 10 to 5. I stayed in the shade. I put lots of SPF on. I barely moved. And I still was so exhausted on Sunday. I slept most of the day because the heat just like drained me.
Yeah, it was like 92 degrees or something.
Yeah. And in all of the makeup, all of the, I look like a clown because that's what I am basically. And yeah, and then I'm also in a show because I thought that was a smart thing to do during Pride Month. So I've been at rehearsals Monday through Thursday, and then it's Tech Week this week. Mm-hmm. Go see the drag, by the way.
At the Varsity.
It's this weekend and next weekend. So it's that time in the summer.
Well, how did Pride Fest go?
Pretty good. We saw a really, really great crowd. There was a couple of protesters. Which, again, being a sister, the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, like, our folks went out and talked to them, is how I'll put that. But overall, really great. The bands that were on stage, they had, like, a stage set up to where everybody was still in the shade, which was really nice.
That's smart.
Right. That's what I thought. The vendors were all really great. I thought it went really well.
Good.
Yeah.
At Disney World, they have a water park called Blizzard Beach. And I swear it's the nicest water park I've ever been to in my life. Not just because it's Disney, and not just the theming, but because there's so much shade everywhere. Mm-hmm. Like normally you go to a water park and it's just like a giant concrete slab with a bunch of water slides. And they have built up so many trees and like shade everywhere that, for somebody much like you who burns like after like 5 minutes out in the direct sun.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is, well, I guess actually like you as well. We are the pellest three people in the world.
Yeah. No, we literally did not play outside when I was a kid because we didn't have shade.
Yeah, well, I mean,
we played outside, but...
Yeah.
I have to use a lot of sunscreen when I go out.
Same.
That park is really nice because there's so much shade around. So every time I see something like, we're going to build a concert venue here with no shade.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's fine if you're going to do night concerts, but day concerts, that would be really nice if there's some shade around.
Exactly. And I joked with some people. I was like, I understand why Pride is in the summer, but also it feels a little homophobic. Because I'm like,
you sound like Julie.
You got drag queens out here melting. Queer folks barely like high temperatures. So, yeah, it's just homophobic. No, but I get why.
I remember my undergrad always did Pride stuff in October, partly because of that.
Boise does it in September, and honestly, it's smart for a variety of reasons. Not only is the weather so much better, but also everyone does Pride stuff in June, so they got to book really big names in September because the queens weren't doing anything.
Right.
So I've seen some RuPaul girls that I never thought I would see. I've seen some Dragula girl in Kings too, that I never thought I'd see because they're smart about when they're booking them and when they're holding their big Pride Fests. So,
yeah, I mean, timing's everything, right?
Exactly.
Alicia, how have you been?
I've been good. We had the memorial celebration for the Kleinows, which was my big thing with my summer GA position. So now that that's done, I get to kind of breathe again and be like, oh, yeah. There is a life outside of this building.
Well, you're also managing the social media, right?
Yeah, I'm managing the social media, but that's a lot less work, you know.
I don't know. You're putting a lot of work into it. Like you're, almost daily post. It feels like several a week at least.
I'm having a lot of fun with it. I'm laughing because I'm like, anyone who has been in one of my classes where I was teaching knows that it's me, because like I always do attendance questions by looking up what holiday it is. So like, oh, it's National Chocolate Milk Day, or like I think this Friday is National Giraffe Day. And so I'm like, all these.
What do giraffes have their own holiday for?
I love that, actually.
I love that so much.
Does every animal get their own day?
I'm sure they do.
Not the snakes. No, I'm just kidding.
No, snakes definitely.
I like snakes.
I think it's safe to say that every animal does.
Probably.
Except for maybe like mosquitoes.
Oh, yeah.
That seems unfair.
Are you going to make a holiday for the mosquitoes, Justin?
Yeah, it'll be August.
Just the whole month of August. Mosquito month.
Pretty much.
Feels accurate.
Have you been out in August?
I was say feels accurate. But yeah, I'm having a lot of fun doing that. But it's just it's a lot calmer than trying to deal with all the Kleinhaus Memorial was both in person and on Zoom. So like dealing with all the tech, dealing with, does everybody have the Zoom link? Does everybody have the YouTube link for the slideshow? Do we have food coming in at the right time? Do we have enough food? Do we have enough programs printed? Oh my gosh, we got handed so many like keepsakes of the Kleinhaus that cool, we're gonna put this out to display, but then like what do we do with it now that the celebration's over? So it was a lot, but it was really good. I got to email back and forth with Jim Belushi, so that was cool. But yeah, now that that's done, I'm finally like, okay, let me just chill for a minute. I get to go home this Thursday, which
Yay.
Thank God. I'm so homesick. I'm like, if I didn't have Wednesday, I'm going with friends to see Les Mis in St. Louis. And like, if I didn't have those tickets and have that plan with friends, I'm like, I probably would have gone home last week because I'm so homesick.
Yeah. Well, good. It's good that you have something to look forward to Wednesday, and then after that, get to go home, and that'll be exciting.
Yeah, and it actually worked out really great too, because my friends DJ and Hannah, his whole family is coming in for the show, and then one of my friends from high school, Madeline, is in St. Louis for work this week, and she's a massive Les Mis fan, so she's coming with us to the show. Cool. And then everybody had also met because she and her fiance came down here for the eclipse in April. So, and of course his family came down, so it's like, oh yeah, a little reunion of like, these are all friends that everybody knows each other.
That's cool.
That's good. So for me, we talked about before the show, I got a new kitten. So
Go Gadget Kitten.
Yeah, her name is Gadget. So that's kept me busy for the past couple of weeks quite a bit. But in the midst of that, I also for my sister's birthday, we went to a concert, my brother, my sister, and I, and it was Abducted by the 80s was the title of it.
Okay, that's amazing.
And so it was 4 different bands. It was Wang Chung, Men Without Hats, The Motels, and Naked Eyes. So those were the 4 bands. And
did you dance if you wanted to? Did you leave your friends behind?
Well, so the Men Without Hats know that's why people are coming to see them.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they are.
So, of course, that's the last song they do.
No.
Really?
It is the first song that they do.
Really?
Then they do a reprise as the last song.
A reprise of the safety dance? Oh, my gosh.
They very much lean into, we know this is why people are coming to see us. So, but I mean, their thing is like, hey, let's get people on their feet immediately. Like, let's play the big hit. We know this is why you're here. And, pretty much everybody else did the standard of, okay, we'll play our biggest hit, the last song.
Yeah.
And And those are the sort of bands that, everybody probably knows at least one song by them, but then there's actually like 2 or 3 songs by them that you probably know. Particularly if you grew up in the 80s, you're probably at least familiar with some of those songs from the radio. So that was really great. And like the best part of it was we had front row seats, like front row center seats.
Dang.
So like it was, that's one of those things like once in a lifetime that you actually front row in a concert.
Yeah.
Like a real concert. But like the craziest thing, so we're sitting there and there's this guy sitting next to us and he has a dog, like a little like dog he's holding.
Was this an outdoor concert?
No. This is in a theater and it's this little tiny dog, so it's one he can hold in his arms the entire time. And it was apparently, like a stress relief, emotional support. Animal. But the first 2 acts that come on stage both comment on the fact that there's a person sitting in the front row with a dog. And I was thinking, these people have been touring since the 1980s, and this is enough to grab their attention. So they have never seen this happen in an indoor concert where somebody's sitting in the front row holding a dog. So it was a first for me to see at a concert, and obviously a first for them as well. So
I hope he had earmuffs for that. That poor dog's hearing must have been like shattered by the end of the night.
Aww.
I mean, you would think so, but like I don't know. The dog was very well behaved. Like, so, it wasn't like it was barking or like trying to get out of his arms or anything. So, good for him. And I'm glad if the dog does bring emotional support. Maybe that's what allows him to get out and go to a concert.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
So I'm not trying to make fun of him because like good for him, but it's also like the most bizarre thing to sit down and look to your right and there's somebody holding a dog.
And you're just like, I want to pet the dog, but it's a working dog. I cannot.
Well,
Right.
that's what somebody brought the teeniest, tiniest little, I look like a rat with more hair, honestly, to Pride Fest. And I like locked eyes with it immediately and like watched as it was coming. And one of the people that was behind the person holding it, like tugged at the person holding it and was like, hey, she needs to see. So they let me hold it and it was, I was like, thank you so much. I needed this.
Yeah, I always have that problem with like support dogs. Like the ones they train here on campus, you'll see people, students. So for those listening, students will train these dogs and take them to class and, try to get them comfortable and familiar with being in public spaces around lots of people. But I always want to pet them.
Oh, yeah.
And so it does take every ounce to go, okay, you can't pet the dog.
Yeah.
Don't distract the dog. Don't bother the dog.
The dog is working.
Yeah.
See, I'm always like, I want to pet the dog. But then I just go to the owner. I'm like, your dog is so cute. That way I'm like, I still get to communicate how much I love the dog while also respecting that it's a working pupper.
The dog says, I'm so cute, pet me, lady.
I did see a vest on another dog that said, please pet me. And it was the most like excitable little bingy looking dog that kept like jumping up on people, like respectfully. Like it was people that would bend down and he would jump.
Yeah.
And it was
I love
like,
that.
people bring your pets in public and let me pet them.
If they're well behaved.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like the worst thing is the
And
people who are like walking their dog and it's like trying to bite your arm off
Yes.
and
Yeah.
everything.
Or like even if your dog is well behaved, please bring it on a leash when you bring it in public.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
This is your public service announcement.
All right. Well, let's talk about what we've been playing. We haven't been 3 weeks maybe.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So let's jump into that. Alicia, have you been playing anything?
I have. So now I can't remember. Did I beat Apollo? I must have beaten the first Apollo Justice game.
I think last time you had beat the first one and
Yeah.
had started the second one.
Yeah. So I beat the second one now, which is Dual Destinies. And let me just say, all of my problems with the first Apollo Justice game solved. Beautiful. Apollo gets a backstory. Athena has a backstory. The prosecutor has a backstory. And I'm like, this is amazing. This is all of my problems that I had with the first one taken care of. Like, don't get me wrong, I think the first Ace Attorney game is still my absolute favorite for how well written it is and how well everything comes together. But Dual Destinies is a close second. Also, just need to shout out, I think I said this to Christina after the podcast last time, but the prosecutor for this one, Simon Blackquill, is such a weeaboo, and it makes me laugh so hard. He's out here, like, calling the defense, it's Athena Sykes, so Sykes don't know, Justice don't know, Wright don't know, and I'm like, bro, you know that Dono is for emperors? Like, it's higher than Sama. It is for emperors. And I know I am more of a weeb than you are for the fact that I can say this offhand. But also, like, it just makes me think your entire personality in middle school was Sasuke Uchiha fan. And I just love it so much because he's like, the whole thing with him is, he's a prosecutor, but he was also a convicted murderer. And so everybody's scared of him, and he's all intense, and he's got a hawk, and I'm just like, bro, I'm not sorry. I'm just laughing my head off at you this entire time because he's just such a weeb.
All right. So you have played through the second one of those. Have you start the third one?
Yep, I'm on case 3 of the third one right now. But cases 1 and 2 both went by fairly quickly. But Game 3 is interesting because Spirit of Justice is the subtitle for the game, and it's, all the previous games are still set in quote-unquote America, or Japanifornia, as we all call it. But then this one goes back and forth between Japanifornia and the country of Kurain, which is like a really cool way to put a twist on, you're used to how the system works and like how the judge is and how the, all of that. And then jumping over to Kurain is like, okay, wow, that whole country hates defense attorneys, and you're going to find out why as the game goes on. But like, just the contrast is very sharp. Mm-hmm. So it's a neat way to, and it's fun because in the first 3 games, Maya and Pearl Faye are your girls. They're your family. Maya's basically your Phoenix's little sister. Pearl's is just adorable 9-year-old. But in the original trilogy, they are the Fays are spirit mediums of the Kurain channeling technique. So then now in this game, getting to go to the country of Kurain and be in like the place where that channeling technique originated in universe is really cool. And we got Maya back. Maya is not in the first 2 Apollo Justice games, but she is in this one, and it makes me so happy because she is my girl. I love her so much.
All right. Anything else you've been playing?
Those have been the big things I've been playing. The other thing is, and we'll talk about this a little more later, but I am now on a nostalgia kick and going back and watching Jacksepticeye play Life is Strange because we'll talk about Double Exposure later, but I am beyond excited for Double Exposure. I can't wait.
Same, but also like watching Jacksepticeye play Life is Strange is interesting, just because of he's a lot. Like I love him. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. My favorite game to watch him play was I'm not gonna remember the name of it, but it was like you play as a zombie that's in this like television show that basically is trying to like kill you the whole time, but you're trying to save the little boy that you love. Watching him play that was hilarious because every time he would get hit with something, he'd make one of his little noises. And
yeah, it's so funny to me because like when I was in middle school and high school, like everybody watched Jacksepticeye and everybody watched Markiplier.
Yes.
And I didn't watch either of them.
Yeah.
And then like now that I'm an adult, I'm like, I want to watch a playthrough. Whose playthrough should I go watch?
I did the same thing when I was writing my dissertation. I didn't sleep for like a month. I do not advise that, by the way. But one of the things, I would come home and I like couldn't turn my brain off, right? And so I would watch Markiplier and, as much as I hate to admit it, PewDiePie. Just because for whatever reason, those idiots like made it to where I could shut my brain down for like a 30-minute nap.
Yeah.
My first exposure to Life is Strange was a quick look on Giant Bomb, and I still remember the part they're playing is they're in the writing group at the college and everything, and their reactions to that scene is just till finally they go, oh, this asshole.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes, anybody who's taken a writing workshop class knows exactly that asshole.
Yup. Well, and it's just so fun going back to it and being like, this is such a time capsule of a game. Like, how weird the animation is, the way that they all talk. I'm like, this is just such a beautiful time capsule.
Yeah. It's also like, I really love like the way they go about telling the story, right? And like the kind of flashback moments, things like that. I don't know. I really enjoy it. So I'm really stoked for Double Exposure too. So, but we'll talk about that more later.
Yeah. Well, and it's really nice because like one of my friends from undergrad, who was really the person who got me back into gaming, she was really big on Overwatch, and then she like uploaded a few things. So she uploaded her playthrough of the first 2 or 3 episodes of Life is Strange, and then she never finished those videos, at least. I don't know if she finished playing the game, but it was her playing it that made me want to go and check it out in the first place. And so then now with the new trailer, I sent it to her and I was like, hey, I still always think of you when I see this game. And like now we're chatting again for the first time in 2 years, which I'm like, this is great.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot, right? How games bring people together quite often. So, all right, is that it?
That is it for me.
All right, Christina, what have you been playing?
So as I mentioned, I've been pretty busy, and so I've kind of just relied on old stuff that I've already talked about, like my phone games and Tetris in terms of playing. It's just like those games that, again, whenever I'm anxious, whenever it's like, oh, I have free time, and instead of dissociating as a treat, I'm going to play these games as a treat. And so I've been playing those. But I've also, like Alicia, been watching a lot of stuff. Because like Balatro, especially Northern Lion, playing Balatro has been a lot of fun. Been watching a lot of Dead by Daylight just because the new killer Vecna is out and they're having their Twisted Masquerade right now, which is, they have their big podcast that they air that's for their celebration for their year or whatever. The Twisted Masquerade is an event in game that comes like, I don't know, but a week or two after that. They have all new like skins for characters. They have like fun little things that you can do in game, things like that. And so that's going on right now. It's been interesting to watch. And then I've gone back because of releases that are coming out, and I'm rewatching InSim Play Until Dawn, just so that because like from what I saw in the trailer, even though the trailer, why? Like the slow version of that song, like it was not good. But I'm excited to see the visual changes, and so I wanted to go back and rewatch at least parts of somebody playing the old version before the new version comes out.
Yeah, because I feel like that's a game I played through when that game came out, but I do not remember much of the story of that game.
Right.
Like it's not. I think that story works, but it's not a story that particularly sticks with you.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And especially because, like, what I really like about the Dark Anthology games is that when they say that your choices matter, they mean it. And so, like, you can make it through the games with only one person alive. You can make it through with everybody alive. And then, of course, there's somewhere all things in between. So, even just going back through, and I've never I watch a lot of NSIM. NSIM plays Mortuary Assistant, which I really like. He plays Phasmophobia,
Right.
the Ghost Hunter game, right? So he plays a lot of those, and I watch him. Oh, and the Shadows of Doubt game, that was really good. I really like watching him play that. But I didn't realize that he had played Until Dawn, so it's my first time watching him play it. And for me, like, choosing people to watch certain playthroughs is a lot about their personality, right? Like, I don't think I could watch. Now I can't watch Markiplier. I can't watch PewDiePie anymore just because both of them get on my nerves. And so I watch originally the Rad Brad do games like Heavy Rain and like Until Dawn and things like that. Although he's not the smartest person, is how I'll put that. And so sometimes watching the, like, puzzle parts of the games are frustrating because I'm like, my dude, it's very easy. Just do this. And so NSIM is a bit smarter. And so I'm interested to see, like, what choices he will make as he's going through the game.
I will also say, in anyone's defense who streams, that streaming makes it much harder to play a game.
Yes.
Like, particularly if you're talking and interacting with your audience at the same time.
Yes.
You know, I see that so often that people who are streaming do really stupid things or can't figure out obvious things in games. And they're like, no, I could have figured this out easily if I wasn't, like, talking and distracted the entire time.
I will say the Rad Brad does not stream. He does YouTube videos. And so there are some times where I'm like, you could have at least edited out the part where, you know what I mean? Made yourself seem a little smarter. NSIM streams. And so I guess that's how I'm able to forgive, right? Sometimes when he doesn't do the obvious thing. But no, I stream occasionally too, and especially like the Mortuary Assistant I streamed for a little bit, and I just had to keep myself from peeing my pants, like much less like trying to focus on like the game itself. And so I definitely get that.
Yeah. All right, is that it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. I played some older games, but nothing really that stands out to talk about. But the thing I did play that was new is the Steam Next Fest is going on, Summer Next Fest. I guess they're doing seasonal ones now. So they have a bunch of demos of new games, some of the ones that were shown at Summer Games Fest and these other events. So the one I played was something called Thank Goodness You're Here. Thank Goodness You're Here has a very distinct animated style to it. It looks sort of like, well, my first instinct is the old cartoon home movies.
Oh, yeah.
Without the like sort of shaky edges that particularly had, the same thing as Dr. Katz, but like that sort of like drawing animation style and everything to it. It looks maybe like sort of a Flash animation to some degree, but it is an adventure game where you're controlling a character. It's all 2D, so you're kind of moving around this 2D environment and everything, and you're in this small British town, and it is fully voice acted. It is the most British game I think I've ever played. The sense of humor is extremely British, which is difficult for me to explain to somebody.
And yet it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, like if you watch British sitcoms, if you watched a lot of Monty Python, then I think you'll know exactly what I mean by this. So you're in this town, and so immediately, at least in the demo, you have to solve all these little puzzles. So for example, like you have to mow the grass in the park that you go into. And so when you go into that, so I'll spoil a joke, but like there's two sunflowers kind of in the foreground, and there's one that's supposed to be kind of male and one that's supposed to be female, and the male one's going, "I love you," and she goes, "I love you," back to him. And then so like in the background, you are moving your character with a lawnmower back and forth, and each time you cross the screen, you're getting closer until you finally come up and you run over the male sunflower and kill him. So it's a lot of jokes like that. It's a person gets their arm stuck in a sewer grate, and you have to figure out how to get them free, which involves going to the grocery store and finding the right like food that will be used to like slick them up and get them out. So it's a lot of jokes like that in it. It's very funny. You know, it just nails that British sensibility extremely well.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is true. Somebody said that Matt Berry does one of the voices of the characters, like the groundskeeper, and it really sounds like him. And so that's like a pretty impressive pull if they got him in to do this game. You know, Matt Berry from like the It Crowd and lots of British like kind of comedy shows and everything. He has a very distinctive voice, and it does sound like him. So yeah, I was really impressed by this. Like, it's not a game that's going to be a huge blockbuster hit, but if you like adventure games, it's a very simplified adventure game that I feel like anybody could pick up and play. It'll play well on consoles because you're not moving a cursor around the screen. You're literally moving your character around the screen and doing, like, in some cases, very simple platforming to like climb up on shelves and get things. It also, the art style is very like kind of distorted. So you go into a bar and your character is like the size of a pint glass, and all the other characters look like giants next to you. So like they're playing around with it in very kind of fun and interesting ways. So it's a game I went from almost zero. Well, I didn't even know about it to like now it being a game I want to play the full game.
Oh, nice.
So as a demo, it did its job.
Nice.
And that demo is still up on Steam. I think that maybe goes down either today or tomorrow. So check it out if you have not already. I think it's worth playing.
Nice.
All right, so let's jump on over to the news. We have a lot of news because Summer Games Fest happened. E3 season happened. And so there's a lot of new game announcements. We're going to kind of go show by show and talk about these. So after we recorded our last episode, I think it was like the next day or something, or maybe 2 days after, they did the PlayStation State of Play. So they announced quite a few different games for that. I think the biggest game that got announced there was the Astro Bot game. So Astro Bot, who has appeared in multiple different things up to this point. So there was a VR game. There's the game that comes pre-installed on PlayStation 5s. I think there was also a demo on the PlayStation 4 that he maybe appeared in. This is his first full-throated console game where it is just his kind of world and everything. It looks an awful lot like the one they put out on the PlayStation 5. It is supposed to be significantly larger, over 4 times larger than that game that was included. So it is a full console game. I don't know. What do y'all think of that?
So the first time I played it was when I got the PlayStation 5. And I actually didn't know what it was. So I was like, oh, it comes with this little bitty game. This is cute. And then I was like, oh, this is teaching me the controller. That's awesome. I'm glad that it's getting its own game just because it really is fun to play. My only concern is kind of the same concern we had with the Princess Peach game. That's like, how are they going to be able to vary it up enough to where 4 times the content makes sense, I guess.
Right.
But I enjoyed it, and I'm excited to play it, honestly, just because it is fun and he's so cute.
He is adorable. So this is going to be a constant theme across all of these for me, but like one of the things I love is like getting to see game. We've talked so much about how so many like PlayStation and Xbox games just seem so adult oriented, and like Astro Bot seems like the kind of game that like I would pick up and play at 9 years old and just have an absolute blast playing. So I'm like, this looks adorable. I love all the and like the cheeky little, oh, it's definitely not the Iron Giant there. And that's definitely not a Triforce that you just went through. Like the cheeky little nods to, it looks so fun. Like,
well, yeah, because the one that you play on PlayStation 5 has like a whole room that's like, well, one of the things that you're looking for in the different levels is like it pays homage to like PlayStation history, basically. And so that's also kind of fun that they were able to take this game and connect it to the history. And so, yeah, looking for those little like winks here and there is a lot of fun.
I live for that.
Yeah, I think, that the one that comes on the PlayStation 5, which is Astro Bot's Playroom. Is that the title?
That's right, yeah.
I always forget what the title. I'm always thinking I'm going to get it confused with the VR one or something. But anyways, that one, I think what surprised me was, it's a really good demo of the controller, like you said. But it's actually a really good game.
Yes.
Like, and I would argue it's maybe like one of the best PlayStation 5 exclusives.
Yeah.
Which there's not a huge ton of those. That's not on something else as well. I think that game's fantastic. So the idea that they were making a whole new Astro Bot, a full game, got me really excited. And I understand your concern. Like, okay, well, is this going to be varied enough? And the thing that kind of excited me about that trailer was how much varied gameplay they showed. So they show the part where you get the gloves and you're like
clobber fists.
Yeah, and you're like kind of swinging and using them as grappling hooks. And, they showed some of the bosses, which gave off a very sort of Super Mario Galaxy vibe to me. They showed you sort of gliding on the controller and using the motion control to or it seemed like motion control to maybe guide the controller. So, it seems like they're aware of that like the basic platforming is good, but might get boring. And they're trying to very much go that sort of Mario route of, okay, let's introduce something new, some new mechanic every so often to keep this varied.
And the only thing I was thinking, like the only thing to me it would need in order for 4 times the content to make sense is some kind of like storyline.
Sure. Because
even we didn't get much of a story with unless I totally missed it, and just because I will admit I didn't finish the full. What is it? What would you call that? Demo?
It's kind of a tech demo, but it is a full game.
I got to the monkey one and I paused it, and then I just never went back because I played other games on the PlayStation. But all they would need to do is like develop some sort of storyline, which would also be cute because it would give us this backstory into this little guy. Yeah. And again, we've talked quite a bit about how PlayStation doesn't have like a Nintendo has Mario, right?
Right.
They don't have a character that's theirs, or if they did have one, they've abandoned it, like Spyro and Crash Bandicoot and
Jak and Daxter.
Yes, exactly. They don't. And maybe it's because kind of, Alicia, what you were alluding to with like all the ones that they do have seem to be very, I don't know, targeted to kids. But I don't know. I think
there was a lot of people in the YouTube comments going like, Sony, please make this guy make Astro Bot the PlayStation mascot. Like, can you imagine like having just like any PlayStation trailer having him like bop in and like do a little wave and be the one to bring up the logo.
It makes sense. He would be able to kind of be featured at any point in pretty much any of their games. Like even in the awful horror games that I love, like having him like kind of shaking or something at the end of a trailer next to the PlayStation. You know what I'm saying? Like they would be able to integrate him in, I think.
But that game that comes installed on the PlayStation 5, that's one of the things that's so charming about it is that they do have the Astro Bot characters like reenacting different games.
Yes.
Right? So like there's one, as you go through that game, there's little vignettes off to the side that you see where those characters are reenacting scenes from different PlayStation
That's
games.
so cool.
And so, like, there's one, speaking of your horror games, there's
Did
one.
they do Resident Evil?
Yeah, there's one where he's opening a door, and on the other side there's a zombie Astro Bot, and so like, and they show that in this trailer that they're going to continue doing that. So they show like one that's dressed like Kratos, and he throws you his axe.
Yeah. And he like tries to catch it.
They showed Parappa the Rapper in there.
Yes, that one I saw, and I was like, oh. Please tell me that they're gonna have something that's a throwback to that, because that would be a lot of fun.
So apparently, in interviews after the demo or after the trailer, they did say there's going to be something like 150 of those characters throughout the game. So like, but I agree with you when you talk about story. Like, are they going to give a bigger reason for this? Right?
Yeah,
okay, this is really cool, all this PlayStation nostalgia. I'm very much into that. Mm-hmm. But are you going to lean into that in a way that makes us care more than just for nostalgic reasons?
Or just more than like tech demo, right? That he can do all these things because he's teaching you how to use your controller. Or is he going to, I don't know, add context to some of it? Yeah.
Sure. Let's see. They showed off Concord. So this had one of the most bizarre trailers, I think, of the entire Summer Game Fest, because there's a several minute long trailer that's just a CG rendered trailer introducing the characters in this, which
looked pretty cool. I mean,
it looks straight out of Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
It is very much that vibe, the sort of like quippy, like bunch of weird characters brought together onto a team. And then immediately after showing that trailer, they showed that this is just a character shooter game.
Yeah.
Right? So like it is a sort of 4v4 character shooter game with those characters. And it was sort of weird. Like, why did you spend that time building up these characters? Because it doesn't seem to really matter in the game.
Exactly. That's what it upset me, to the point where once they started to show the game itself, I fast forwarded through that part because I was like, I don't know, they got me attached to these things, and then it's like, their personality doesn't matter outside of like what weapons or like what their strengths are. Like obviously they have a tank character,
right?
And then they have like a weapons specialist, right? Those kinds of things, but yeah.
It feels like that trailer exists because Overwatch does that. They do character trailers, and they're like, okay, well, we have to do this. But just from my perspective, I just don't care.
Yeah.
And so I look at that game, and I'm like, well, it looks like a pretty good one of those, but there's nothing particularly unique about it. Right. So I don't know what is going to bring people to that. That was a game that when they showed it, it was very confusing to a lot of people because they were like, okay, so is this a free-to-play game? No, they are selling pre-orders for that game at $40.
Oh, wow.
So that makes it even more of a big question mark. Can they get enough people to buy into that game where there's a player base?
I mean, maybe that's why they went all in on the trailer and giving the storyline and everything else. It's because they kind of knew that they would need more buy-in. And so getting people attached to characters, wanting to play those characters or wanting to be in the realm that they've created so that they would get folks to do the pre-order. But it just pissed me off. So I'm like, no.
I think one of my big takeaways from the C3 is or Summer Games Fest, whatever, we have moved past the need for the CG rendered story trailer.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Like, they're just so unnecessary. We'll talk a little later about the Dragon Age trailer, and that trailer to me...
The Indiana Jones one.
Right. Like, and I'm fine with that in the game. That Indiana Jones, if that's a cutscene in the game, like that's cool story-wise.
But for it to be 95% of the trailer.
Yeah, I just didn't care.
Yeah. Because honestly, I want to see gameplay to see if it's the type of game that I want to play.
Yeah.
And that Dragon Age one did the same thing, and there's several other examples, but Concord is maybe one of the worst offenders because I feel like a lot of people got misled on that.
Well, because it started it off. Like, it started everything off and had us really invested in it and then dropped the ball. So,
they showed off a game called Infinity Nikki. I thought this game was just interesting because it's so bizarre looking. It looks so weird and out of place compared to all the other trailers that Sony showed off.
But also beautiful.
I'll say, I think, again, this is a game that, like, 12-year-old me would pick up and play.
Yeah.
And, like, 26-year-old me wants to pick up. Like, this PlayStation State of Play makes me want to get a PS5 for myself because Astro Bot and Infinity Nikki and Marvel Rivals, I'm like... It looks so delightful.
It looks pretty, but it's also like you're going, what am I looking at?
Yeah,
like what exactly is going on here?
It's very anime. It is so it looks like there's like two different parts to the game. So one part is you are dressing up your characters in like sort of a virtual dollhouse dress up.
Yeah. So
thing.
when I was looking at it, because somebody the comments. The Infinity Nikki English account commented and was like, we're so excited to bring Nikki to consoles. And I was like, so wait, this is not like a first game? No, there are 4 mobile games. And I think the first 2 are no longer active, but like the first one came out in like 2011 or something like that.
Oh, okay.
And it's like the first 2 are just like straight up mobile dress up games, and then like the third and fourth one have actual plot. So I'm like, I am just so intrigued by how this all comes together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it shows you in parts like you're controlling a cat or something through platforming sections, which
he has a little cape.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the first part that they show in the trailer, and then they switch over and show the like dress up segments, and so. That was such a whiplash when they switched over to those segments because at first I was like, oh, it's a cute little platformer. And then like, oh, no, this is something else. And so I still have no idea what that game actually is.
Yeah, I think that it's actually similar to Princess Peach Showtime and like the different outfits have different abilities and stuff like that is the vibe that I've gotten. This was from me trying to Google and... The little cat sidekick is so cute, and apparently he's super sassy.
His name is Momo.
Yeah. Apparently the first mobile game was the one that like had the most detail on the wiki page, and that one's like, you like dress up to like go to coffee with your friends or whatever, and he's the one who judges your outfits.
My cat would, honestly.
Yeah, and like gives you like a S rank, A rank. B, C, F. And I'm like, this just like this looks so good. I'm like, I just really want to play it.
Look, this looks like your face. So I'm looking up pictures of it, and there's a picture of a YouTuber who like their what is that word? The picture, the thumbnail. The thumbnail is making a face like I would imagine Alicia made when she watched this or she watched this trailer.
She's just like got the big joy grin and her hands on her face like, oh.
Yeah, that was Alicia. I guarantee you watching this.
So I was looking on the App Store. There are a couple of different Nikki dress-up games.
Yeah,
which,
it's like
again,
Nikki Up to You is the first one. And
Love Nikki Dress Up and Shining Nikki Fashion.
Yeah.
Something. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like the cat elements look really fun to me. The dress up parts considerably less fun.
What, Justin? What?
You're not interested in the
dress
fashion? You're not interested in the dress up parts, Justin?
Look, I'm never interested in that element in a game. Like anytime I can customize my character, I'm like, okay, do I have to do this? How much of this do I have to do?
Okay, but hear me out. What if someone mods in a Bucky's shirt and those Garfield pants that Christina sent into the group chat?
I mean, then yes, I will buy those and put my character in it. Look, when I have to dress up my character, I make them look like the biggest sleazeball I can. Like, I want them to look like they're on South Beach in Miami. So...
That's the mod you need to get Justin to play this game.
The sleazeball mod.
It's surprisingly easy with a lot of games.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, at least that game was something unexpected, I think, for most people.
It's unexpected, and again, it doesn't look like a heavy game emotionally.
Yeah.
Which
Right,
is like,
sure.
we're missing that so much from PlayStation right now. So I'm like, give it to me.
Well, speaking of heavy emotional, they showed off the trailer for the Until Dawn remake, which I guess this is the first time we've seen actual footage
Yes.
of what this game looks like.
Yes.
You know, so I know, Christina, you're excited about this.
For sure.
It looks good to me. I guess I wasn't blown away by how it looks.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's not a huge jump from the original, and I don't know how much they're adding to it or changing, and so that's a reason why I'm going back to watch the original, because I'm like, am I just remembering it being so much better than what it actually was? Or is there actually anything, like, is it going to be worth repurchasing
Right.
to play? Which is kind of my constant question with some of the remakes and stuff like that. So, or do I just watch somebody on YouTube play it who paid the extra money or who got sent it for free?
I feel like this game suffers in the same way that The Last of Us remake did.
Yeah.
In that this was originally a PlayStation 3 game, right? And then they did a sort of up-res version for the PlayStation 4.
Right, and that's the one that I played.
Okay. And then now this is a total from the ground remake, is my understanding. And so it's like the third version of this game we've had over 3 consoles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I feel like maybe if we'd had the PlayStation 3 version and jumped straight to this,
Yes.
like it would be more significant.
Right.
But because we had the PlayStation 4 version in between, like the impact is less.
Exactly, because we don't get to see that big of a jump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my thought is that the only reason that they're going back to this is because I know there's a lot of rumors, and I want to say the rumors have been confirmed now, but I don't remember, about like this being made into a movie.
Yes, I sent you the other day the
Yes,
thing
that's- okay.
they announced the cast.
Yes. Okay. So that's what I was like. Why do I remember there being a confirmation? Because
Yeah.
there was. And so I think they're just trying to capitalize on the timing of that and of people getting excited about this, especially, and we'll talk more about the Blumhouse game thing later. But I think that horror games especially are really trying to connect with that whole movie vibe.
Right.
I think it has to do a lot with like not only the success of games like Dead by Daylight, but more so like the Quarry game that came out a year or two ago. All of the ones that
Which is the same team.
exactly the Dark Anthology, whatever.
Well, and we had the Five Nights at Freddy's movie.
Yes.
Last year, the year before.
Yep, it's like in order to. Horror movies for a little while were kind of just giving us the same thing over and over. And now they're looking for their motivation or their muse in these video games that have been relying on great storytelling for a while.
Yeah.
And especially with the ones that are tapping into that, like, it's basically a movie where you get to choose
Right.
what's happening. They're really, I think, going to that for inspiration for like the movies and stuff like that. So I see this happening more and more, to be 100% honest.
And I think you bring up a really good point about linking it back to the film, because we've seen this with The Last of Us remake.
Yep.
That when that show came out, they wanted to have a game
Yep.
that people could play, and people did. They rushed out and bought that game. They sold a ton of that game. Same thing with Fallout. They
I
did.
bet we're about to see the same thing with BioShock.
Right. So,
Yeah.
like, they didn't have a new Fallout, but what we have seen is a spike in the number of people playing Fallout 76
Yep.
Yep.
in response to that show, and people going back and buying Fallout 4 and stuff. And so I can very much see Sony saying, hey, we're making this into a film. We need to have a version that people can play today.
Yep.
So we have Until Dawn, which I suppose the PlayStation 4 version is backwards compatible, but we want a version that is updated with new graphics. We want a version that we can put out on the PC. I would not be shocked to see this game by next year when that film comes out and the Switch 2 has come out, to see a version get ported over to the Switch,
Oh, for sure.
so that whatever system you're playing on, other than Xbox,
Yeah.
that they would let you buy a copy of this. Because I think you're right also in that this is a really accessible video game.
And it's like honestly an accessible genre as long as you don't mind horror.
Right.
Which and
it's an accessible type of horror, I think.
Yes.
But this is a sort of game like people who don't play a lot of video games can pick up and play.
Especially because they have modes that are like the casual mode,
right,
where it really is like playing or like watching a movie that you occasionally have to push buttons for or make choices for. Because like either the combat, if the game has combat, it's less, or there's not as many quick time events, things like that.
I don't know if they had any of these features in the PlayStation 4 version, but I know in the Quarry and some of their other games, they've put in like sort of like party game modes so that you can collectively sort of like vote on what should happen next or what the character should do next.
Interesting.
I don't think that was in Until Dawn, but I know that Dark Anthology was playing with that because there was an entire game that came out that was party mode where you could like play with somebody else.
Right.
Yeah.
So I see them doing that more.
Yeah.
And so, again, I just feel like they're making a game that, you know, like I use somebody like my brother as an example who doesn't play a lot of video games anymore, but grew up playing video games, likes video games. And I could very much see him like, hey, like this movie was good. Before the movie in the theater, there's a trailer for this game, and they tout those features and being like, oh, I'll pick that up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because I don't have to spend 20 hours getting good at the game to enjoy it.
Yeah. Especially if you do it like, this is the type of, like, did you not like the ending? Or did you not really like this character and they ended up living? Well, you can kill them. You know?
Right.
Which, honestly, there's a couple of characters in Until Dawn that I was not mad when they did not make it. You know? And so like I'm interested. That's another thing that's really cool about the movie coming out is I'm interested to see what choice, like I'm sure that are they gonna go for the good ending, quote unquote, or are they gonna let some of these people die?
Or do they pull a Clue and release different endings in different theaters?
Oh, that would actually be cool.
That might actually be fun considering the structure of the game, right? Like if you're going to reflect that, I mean, like we haven't had a film do that in a long time.
Clue is the only one I know that's ever done it.
I didn't even know that was a thing. So
I mean, I know Into the Spider-Verse, but they sent out the original copy of it, and then they did some updates to like some of the dialogue and cleaned up and sent that out. But
they did that for Cats as well.
But Clue is the only one that I know of that's been significant in doing that.
I think a few different films over the years have played around with that idea of having like different versions or multiple endings.
Dude, that would be smart for multiple
Clue's the most
reasons,
mainstream.
because like I would go see it in theaters and then I would go back, like if I was guaranteed to have either a different ending or whatever.
That
like
would at the end of the movie be like, at the end of the credits be like, this is ending A.
Yeah.
When Clue came out, I think theaters, as I recall, like advertised that.
Yeah.
So they would advertise like, hey, this is ending 1. This showing has ending 2. This showing has ending 3.
I would go multiple times to this film.
But I do think like if you're releasing this film, putting a trailer for the game attached to it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Just makes a whole lot of sense.
You'd be stupid not to.
For sure.
And so I think that's the reason we're getting another, another version of Until Dawn. It's a good game, but
yes, for sure.
Let's see. We got a trailer for Monster Hunter Wilds. I guess this was our first like gameplay trailer. I have never really played the Monster Hunter games. I will say that trailer looks amazing.
It really does. But honestly, all of them did.
Yeah. But I think they, that last one, I guess it was World, really kind of hit critical mass where that became a mainstream game. It wasn't just this sort of like niche game, at least here in the U.S. It's always been very mainstream in Japan. And now I see this one building off of that success. I feel like this is going to be an even bigger hit than the last Monster Hunter. And the graphics, I think, just kind of, sell that even more.
For sure.
Because it looks impressive. They showed Silent Hill 2. This was our first real footage of that remake that they're doing.
Yeah. It's gonna be good. I'm really excited about it mainly because it's one of those like nostalgia games for me, like renting it and getting a pizza on a Friday night, one of those kinds of things. And so I'm kind of excited to recreate that.
A friend of mine sent me a meme this last week, and it said, "It's Friday night. You've ordered a pizza from Pizza Hut. You don't have to go to school in the morning. You have Ocarina of Time. You're staying up all night playing it." And then it said, "You're 39. And I was like, oh, that like hits
no
too close
shame.
to home.
No shame.
Yeah, like, I mean, those Silent Hill games, like, they announced like 8 Silent Hill games all at once. This was the big one, though, that they were doing a full remake of Part 2. I'm interested in seeing this. I was not super impressed with how it looks. It doesn't look bad, but like, I think when you put it up to the remake of, say, Resident Evil 4, it really suffers next to that. And that's maybe an unfair comparison, right? Like, that's an amazing looking game, and it's maybe unfair to compare it. But I'll be interested to see how this gets received by people. Like, is it purely a nostalgia play, or is this going to bring in new fans?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, because like I will be getting it, but yeah, it's mainly for that nostalgia. And I wasn't kidding about the the pizza and a Friday night. It's fine.
I mean, I'm not kidding either. Like,
This is the room where none of us are kidding about that. I spent all of Friday this week. Literally, I put in a frozen pizza instead of ordering one, but then I just sat on the couch and played Switch all day. So.
Well, I mean, my friend who sends that to me in between sending me messages updating her status in Tears of the Kingdom. So she is very much being honest about like what she's doing.
Yes.
That some.
So it was one of those, I'm going to send a meme because it's too true. It's
like, I mean, 25 years later, she is doing the same thing she was doing with Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
I love that, though.
Let's see. They showed off a trailer for Dynasty Warriors Origins. This had to be like maybe the most surprising trailer in the entire Sony showcase, just because we have had so many of these games. Like, the fact that you would show this in your showcase is kind of ridiculous. Yeah. But it looked good for one of those.
I will say the beginning of it, all the CGI stuff looked amazing. But then when they showed actual gameplay, I was like, oh. Because I get that the CGI is always going to look a little better, but there was such a discrepancy for me between the CGI and the gameplay that I was like, oh, well, I started to write that one down and then I crossed it off.
They showed off Marvel Rivals, and so Alicia, I know you mentioned being excited for this.
Yeah, I don't think it looks like it has any plot or anything, but it's very much giving Marvel Ultimate Alliance vibes. Which, like, that was one of the games on the Wii that my dad sat and played with us, So I'm like, just that nostalgia makes me excited for it and makes me want to get it to, like, sit down and play because my dad, he played Guitar Hero with us and he played Wii Sports with us, but where my mom will sometimes sit and, like, watch us play video games if we're in the living room, my dad doesn't even do that very much. So like this is the kind of thing that I'm like, oh my gosh, we could actually sit and play video games with my dad again.
That's really cool.
So this is, I think, very similar to Concord in the actual gameplay. Like, I think it's sort of one of those character shooters and everything. But so I know Mario and I talked about this after this showcase, after the State of Play. And it seems like showing this at the same time you show Concord seems like such a disservice to Concord, because Concord is this entirely new IP, but it's doing the exact same thing that this is doing, but this has the benefit of the Marvel IP.
Yep.
Right?
I didn't watch the Concord trailer. I watched this one because I saw it was Marvel.
Yeah, so 20 years ago, I would have said maybe that doesn't matter as much.
Yeah, but not right now.
Oh, it matters.
But with the MCU, it matters a great deal. right? Like little kids all know and have grown up, over the last 15 years or whatever, have grown up with these characters. So the moment you put Captain America and Iron Man in something, little kids want that. They always have to a degree, but like more so now, I think, than ever.
Yeah.
And so it seems like a weird thing for Sony to like include this trailer, because I just think like they just have such an advantage. Marvel Rivals has such an advantage over Concord when it comes to building a fan base.
For sure.
Particularly because I think Marvel Rivals is supposed to be free to play. So when you talk about that barrier to get into it.
Yeah.
Especially like $40 for,
Yeah.
which I know we've talked about, and like I get that we talk quite a bit about the fact that like people are losing their jobs and stuff like that, but it's sort of like the norm has been set that games like this tend to be free.
Right.
And so comparing that to a $40 price tag is quite a bit.
And I'm sure Marvel Rivals will give you free to play and then sell you Black
sure.
Widow for $10
Sure.
or something.
But I'll buy Black Widow for $10. I'm not gonna lie.
Well,
Right.
and again, Marvel Rivals can do that, where it's like, oh, Black Widow is this character you already know. Whereas I think it's really interesting comparing that to what you were saying about Concord earlier, where like it spent all that time introducing the characters and then showed what the game was, and you're like, oh, dang it.
Yeah,
Like it's really interesting to contrast those two.
right. Especially like I am interested in their story. Like, give me backstory on these folks. Don't just Anyway, I've already complained about it.
That's the Sony show. They did show off some other things, but we're kind of filtering these through the things that really caught our attention and made us excited. So then we had Summer Games Fest. So this is the Jeff Keighley big sort of replacement for E3, the big showcase that they do each year. And they showed off quite a few different things. So bizarrely, they begin this with a PlayStation game, Lego Horizon Adventures. And I think maybe the biggest shock of this game was that they showcased it and then announced that this is coming to PlayStation and Switch.
Which like makes me I will admit, everything I know about Horizon is things that y'all have said on the podcast, and like remembering that one idiot on Twitter who was like, let me redesign her. And so like watching this trailer, I was like, this is hilarious. And I don't know how much of it is Lego and how much of it is Horizon, but I'm like, I want this game.
It's Lego.
It is Lego in a way, sort of like, parodying.
But it's like the same thing that they do with like the Lego Star Wars games and the Lego Batman games, and I'm like, I am here for it.
But like one of the things that really got me with that trailer was they have her talking throughout the entire trailer.
Yeah.
Which is like one of the big complaints that some people had was that she talked too much, like as you're playing Horizon. And so the fact that they have the Lego character just like really leaning into that aspect, like we're just gonna have her talk nonstop in this trailer.
I love it.
I love it. I'm like, that is so on brand for Lego games, and it just amazing.
It really looks cool too. Like I've played other Lego games, and I don't know, like the world that they create with it looks really cool because it looks like you're playing with Lego.
Yeah.
In a way that I don't know if other games have kind of tapped into. I don't know. It looks really cool. I'd play it.
Well, and it makes sense, I think, from a design perspective, because the Horizon games are about like these dinosaurs that are built out of all these parts, and you're kind of like tearing parts off of them to defeat them. And of course, that fits up very well with Lego, right?
Yeah.
Like this probably makes more sense than Lego Until Dawn.
Yeah. Although I would play Lego Until Dawn.
I know you would. But I think one of the big stories to come out of this is the fact that they are releasing this onto to Switch at launch, right? Like this is not, hey, a year or two later we're going to make a Switch version. This is day and date. We're putting this out onto Switch, and this is a PlayStation developed game, right? Like this is first party PlayStation, and so I think that is really kind of shocking.
It really, to me, it makes sense though, because like Lego seems to be the right container for something to be released onto the Switch.
Sure.
Because, I mean, as we've mentioned, like the Nintendo seems to be more family friendly, as does Lego.
Well, and there's a certain level of graphics that like
yes. Oh yeah.
You expect Lego to look a certain way.
It's not going to be like Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
It's been a year and we're still laughing at OJ.
Because it was that bad.
It was that funny. I will be laughing at this for the next 10 years.
Honestly, and I didn't think it was, I was like, oh, it can't be that bad. And then I was sent a video of it and I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, when they brought in their phone and were showing us like clips of it, I was like, oh no.
Yeah, it's horrible. And so yeah, I think you're right. Like it's easier to pull off the graphics of a Lego game on the Switch for sure.
Because I feel like Horizon is one of those games that people talk about as like this is the top tier graphics of like this is why the PS5 has to be so strong. So like how do you bring that to Switch? Well, you make it Lego.
It also makes sense for Nintendo to jump on this just because they are probably really, really focused right now on the Switch 2 release, whatever that's going to be called. And so to be able to partner with a big name that's something that's going to sell as like as towards the end of their console, because I know like for N64, like one of the last games that was released on that console was like Conker's Bad Fur Day, which was a really amazing game and honestly pretty ahead of its time, not graphically, but like in other ways. However, it did not do as well as games like Banjo-Kazooie, things like that, because it was one of the last games of that console. So here, it being something that, it being Lego, so they'll sell it. It being Horizon, so they'll sell it. It being something that is PlayStation on the Switch, so they'll sell it. I don't know, makes sense for a lot of reasons.
And it fills out their lineup because they're going, they were supposed to release the Switch 2 this fall.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they delayed it to next spring sometime. And so they are pretty stretched thin for games to release this year is our assumption. Now we're going to talk about that more here in a little bit, but so having an original game, right, that's coming out. And then the other thing I'll note about Horizon is Alicia, you and I did the presentation for the women's conference a couple years ago where we were talking about women playing games, right? And like the sort of games that appeal to women and everything. Every woman who is in there just about, I feel like even in the chat while we're doing this, like, because we're doing it during COVID over online, they're all talking about Horizon and how excited they are about Horizon. It is a game that appeals to women.
Well, yeah, that's why I mentioned it, because like I think Lego has its own audience. I think Horizon, and that was what I was referring to. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and, I mentioned like, my first big exposure to it was that jerkwad who was like, I'm going to redesign her to be pretty. And it was women coming back at him being like, you're an idiot.
It's lesbians coming at him being like, excuse me, she's already gorgeous. Shut the...
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. We know what he was really upset about.
No titties.
No, it was that you couldn't see her vagina bone.
I forgot about that.
I will never forget that. It is one of the funniest posts I've ever read online. It was one of those things that you read and you go, oh, like this is like a 12-year-old writing this.
Yeah.
Has no idea about female anatomy, and they're mad about female anatomy in a video game, and they obviously have no idea about female anatomy. It was like such a perfect post.
They're like, how am I going to learn about the vagina bone if I can't see it?
Oh, man.
Hip bone is connected to the vagina bone.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, no.
This poor, sweet, innocent child. Let's see. They also showed off Harry Potter Quidditch Champions.
Okay, I know we hate J.K. Rowling, but I want this game.
Yeah.
I'm like, it is, of all the Harry Potter games, the Quidditch World Cup game on the PS2 was the one that my sister and I played nonstop.
Yeah.
And like the fact that it's starring Ginny Weasley, my girl, I'm like, I know we hate JKR, and Hogwarts Legacy was not interesting enough to me, but
I have heard that like Warner Brothers is trying to buy Harry Potter. because
Interesting.
because
Yeah.
the actors refuse to work on any projects as long as she is affiliated with it, and so they're trying to negotiate like what would be a reasonable amount of money to buy Harry Potter so it's no longer attached to her.
Interesting.
But I'm like, she'd be dumb to sell it. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
But also, like, at this point, like, she's a multi-billionaire.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and I'm sure any sort of sales of that franchise at this point would be $1 billion plus.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So, I mean, how much money do you need to milk out of it?
Yeah.
And is she really going to write more books or anything? I mean,
Yeah.
Well, it's like after how bad the third Fantastic Beasts movie both was and how bad it did in theaters, like...
so I actually read that's why they're trying to do this, because, you know, she wrote those Fantastic Beasts movies, and they, like, Warner Brothers sort of looks at her and blames her for why those films failed, because she's not a very good screenwriter,
Yeah.
right? I mean, her books are good.
I would say,
I
but
like her books.
but screenwriting and book writing are two very different skills.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, her weakness in her books is her dialogue. and that's all that screenwriting is, really. I mean, not all, but, you know.
It's significant.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll go back to the Hogwarts Legacy debate, right?
Yeah.
Like, people can debate how they feel personally about playing this game. I always thought that OJ had talked to a friend of theirs who said that their sort of compromise was, okay, well, if you're going to buy this game, then make an equal donation to a charity that helps trans people, particularly. And I feel like that's probably
For sure.
a fair thing to do.
Especially because, like, I'm speaking as a millennial, how important that particular franchise was, like, in my, like, junior high years, that it was really hard for me to fast forward through that trailer. But I was like, I know if I don't fast forward through it, I'm gonna end up buying it. And I didn't even want to I didn't want to tease myself like that, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
So, like, that's why I held out hope for, like, the Warner Brothers thing, even though it means that she's still getting a crap ton of money.
But then going forward, you don't have to worry about, like,
So you don't
me
feel-
buying this product is directly giving her money.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah, for sure.
it would be like if you hate George Lucas. George Lucas isn't getting any cut of Star Wars at this point.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
made his money.
For sure.
Which, don't hate George Lucas. I mean, George Lucas is, Star Wars fans hate him with a weird passion that I'm just like, he created this for you. Like, you can disagree with him.
Right.
But, like, even if you think the prequels are bad, it's like, get over it. The one note I would make about this is when Hogwarts Legacy came out, one of the things that was very notably missing in that game was Quidditch.
No, it's fascinating how many people in the comments are like, why isn't this part of Hogwarts Legacy? And I'm like, because of people like me who don't care about Hogwarts Legacy and do care about this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so that they can sell
Yeah.
like two separate
Exactly.
games. Let's see. They showed off a game called Cuffbust, which is this. I'm going to say this a couple of times during this recap. When they first started playing this trailer, I thought, this is a fake game.
Yes.
This does not look like a real game. This looks like it's going to be an ad for something else. Mm-hmm. And then, no, it is a game where you are playing as teddy bears breaking out of a prison.
Are you teddy bears or are you gummy bears?
They're bear. shaped.
I watched half of the trailer and then the like shaking camera was too much for me and I had to stop.
See, I was hoping that it would be a thing where you could play in a group, and I was like, this would be great for all of us to play together.
Is it not a group? I thought you
think
could
it
play
is.
with up
You
to
can?
10 people.
Yeah, because I think that was the point they were trying to make with
Yeah.
some of them escaped on the helicopter and then the other ones shot it down.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but when the bear drops the F-bomb at the end, after the helicopter blows up over the two bears smoking doobies on the beach, I was like, this is my game.
Oh no, it looks delightfully chaotic. I just need a mode to shut off the shaking cam.
Fair.
Yeah,
And they've been really good about offering that.
I was gonna say,
and
I feel like
accessibility.
that would be very easy for.
Yeah. But, the thing that made this look really kind of exciting to me is, like, we need a prison escape game, right? Like, we need Shawshank Redemption, the game.
I did not know where you were going with that. What looks great about this game, yeah, Justin, is that we need a prison escape game.
No, I mean, like,
No,
when you think about
we
that,
do need heist games.
Yeah.
right? Well, I mean, this is sort of a reverse heist game, right? Like,
Yeah,
it's you trying to escape, and so I think that aspect is very gamifiable.
What I really like, it kind of fits in that genre of games that I like, but I don't think about immediately as games that I like. That's like the party games. So like the Fall Guys, Party Animals that we've talked about a little bit, where you play the adorable little stuffies that like beat each other up, right? It seems like it fits into those kind of games where I bet, I haven't played it yet, obviously, but I bet it's pretty straightforward in terms of how you move things.
Yeah.
Because it's meant to be the type of game where you have a bunch of folks that you all want to play together, and so yeah, it's like that.
Yeah, no. In terms of that, it very much gave, or even like Among Us vibes, where it's like you get the group together and very, very much looks like anyone can pick up and play, and looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah, which by the way, I don't see this on the list, but it did have a trailer for the Among Us series. Did y'all watch that?
Yeah.
I still, we have talked quite a bit about how we didn't know how the Among Us would be a series. I still don't know.
Well, the thing that's crazy about that trailer is that trailer ends showcasing all the voice talent.
Yeah.
But there are no voices in the trailer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's so weird because like the whole idea about like these characters being voiced.
Yeah.
Is the big question mark, and they're like really kind of leaning into that. Like we're not going to reveal that.
Also, like there's just like to show the I don't know, whatever, the intruder. It's this big black squiggly thing, and in the end, it looks like it kills all of them. So it's like it almost like confirms our fears of like what are you going to do outside of the game? Like. I don't know.
Well, is each episode going to be one crew member gets killed off?
Yeah.
Is it going to be Harper's Island, but as an animated series?
Like here's Pink's demise. Like, right.
Is each episode going to be the death of Pink, the death of Blue?
Red, an intruder? Question mark.
Right. Yeah. No. That trailer looked weird.
Yes.
But Cuffbust looks really kind of neat.
Sorry. I didn't mean to derail.
No, that's fine because that was not included on here. So thanks for bringing it up. We got a trailer for Sid Meier's Civilization 7. It looks like there's actually no gameplay, so it's just teasing Civilization 7. Those games are fantastic. I'm sure that'll be fantastic and get tons of DLC as well. We got a trailer for the DLC for Street Fighter 6, and I only included this because of two characters in particular. They showed off M. Bison, who is dead in the timeline, as a DLC character, so apparently he's not actually dead. And then they showed off Terry Bogard from Fatal Fury is going to be a guest character in Street Fighter 6. So Street Fighter has generally not had crossover guest characters like other fighting game franchises, particularly Mortal Kombat has over the years. So this is actually kind of exciting for them to bring in these characters. We got a trailer for Dragon Ball Sparking Zero.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That was the most mid. Yeah.
Yeah, because here's the thing. When I came home every day from school, during a certain time in my life, like that was what was on Toonami when I got off the bus, and I would watch it, and I even got my sister into it, who is like the least likely anime person, which I know Dragon Ball is a certain type of anime, but it's still anime. And I love Dragon Ball Z, all of them. And I have never been impressed with their video games, and I got excited when I saw this, and it
sure does look like a game that's going to exist.
Yeah, it's going to be a thing that I might watch a video or two just to make sure that I'm, that my assumptions are correct. But I don't know. It looks like there's going to be a wide variety of characters, like some that maybe you haven't been able to play before. But otherwise, I don't know what new thing it is doing. So I don't know.
My first introduction to Dragon Ball was actually the NES game, which is retitled Dragon Power, and doesn't actually include like any of the story elements or anything. It's changed them all around. And so I remember years later, like searching online, because I was like, I remember renting this game one time and it was really weird. And so I finally posted on a forum and described it to people, and they're like, oh yeah, that was the Dragon Ball game. And I was like, is Dragon Ball that weird?
That is not Goku.
No, they changed him for the NES version. Because they just basically threw out the license for the American version, because this predates
That
like
tracks.
Toonami and all that. So
but yeah, his little character, he does. That's Goku. That one is. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's even got a little tail. Oh.
yeah, it's a very bizarre game to play. My understanding is the Japanese version is much more clearly Dragon Ball. They just changed it for the American version.
Yeah.
Let's see. They showed off, speaking of Fatal Fury, they showed off Fatal Fury City of the Wolves. This is the sequel to Mark of the Wolves, which was a future set sort of spin-off of the Fatal Fury series, which was very famous for years because they never ported that to anything, and then they finally did, and now they're making a sequel to it. It looks like one of those games.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
looks good. They show off a game called Metaphor Refantasio, which is from the people behind the Persona series. I don't know if either of you have any interest in this.
Not really.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it looks like one of those games. It looks like it'll be a decent one of those games, but those games just don't appeal to me.
Yeah, it didn't do much for me either. But I think this probably did do more for you, Christina.
Oh, yeah.
Bloomhouse Games, and they had, what's his name, Jason Bloom?
Yeah, I think that's right, yes.
They had him come out on stage, and he announced that Bloomhouse is getting into game development.
Yeah.
So they're going to have Bloomhouse Games, and they showed off 6 games. I will say that is one of the worst trailers I've ever seen. It was so confusing what they were showing at first.
I didn't know which title went to which game because
Right.
of the way that they did it.
Yeah.
The only thing that I will say that's really cool. So Blumhouse is known in the horror community for really stretching out beyond the again the normal predictable storylines.
Right.
So I think that will be really cool for video games. And what I really appreciated about the games, even though they were confusing and I couldn't tell what was what,
Right.
was the variety of genres. I mean, obviously it all falls under the horror genre, but the very first game had amazing visuals that scared the shit out of me. But then it was followed up immediately by like a little like 2-bit like
Sort of sprite-based,
Yes,
like cozy-looking game.
yes. And then they have some others that it wasn't necessarily, I don't even know. Honestly, it kind of looks like it was reminiscent of like the very first Tomb Raider because of how like their faces were met and stuff, and you're like sitting across from somebody with a Ouija board sort of thing, and she's like has a pentagram on her shirt, you know. So that's something that I'm really looking forward to, the fact that they're taking their storylines and just going poof, right, and it's reaching all these different genres or types of gameplay, which to me is really cool. So like they could easily, I think, go towards games like the Dark Anthology games where it's basically a movie that you play through, but instead they are looking at expanding their universe in such a way where it's still Blumhouse stories, but they're being told through different mediums in a way that I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, part of Blumhouse's success has been that they made very sort of like micro-budget films.
Yes.
Right? They came out and we're going to make horror films, but they're all going to be less than $10 million.
Yep.
Which is really small for a
Yeah.
feature film budget.
For sure.
And they have had huge success at doing that because you can have 4 misses and 1 hit.
Yes.
And it certainly can pay off all those misses,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And so it seems like they're doing the same strategy with this, which is that they're going out and they're funding these 6 games, which are like all look like fairly smaller indie games.
Yes.
With I think the key being that very different approaches, or they're all horror related, but like kind of different styles of gameplay, as you noted.
For sure.
But it seems like they're doing the same thing. Like, hey, we're going to go out and we're going to fund these games. We're not going to go out and fund a $100 million game.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to go out and fund these games that we can put, I don't know what they're doing, $5 million into this game.
Yep.
And if it misses, that's fine, because one of these 6 might hit.
Right. I mean, yeah, you can definitely look at this. So they've had, even though I would consider Five Nights at Freddy's a miss, that movie made so much money because of the link to the video game.
Sure.
Yeah.
Megan, of course, did a lot. But then they have ones that are, I'm sure, didn't film as much, but were still good, like Black Foam, Truth or Dare. Another big one was Get Out and Insidious. But then they had stuff like Night Swim,
Right.
which was not good.
The haunted swimming pool movie.
What? It's like Marco Polo's gonna get you, like that kind of thing. It's like, no.
But I feel like even just the fact that they did Get Out, like that alone
for sure
covers every movie that you just said.
I mean, anything Jordan Peele touches to me is he puts his little genius sprinkle on everything he touches. So
yeah. Like even as a very not horror person, and like Five Nights at Freddy's, I'm interested in because of the cultural osmosis of the games,
Sure.
like you said. But like Get Out, I'm like, I have never watched it, will never watch it, but I know it's incredible.
You honestly, you should, because like in terms of horror, it's anyway. I'll get I'll definitely derail if we start talking about this. It's a very good, very, very, very good movie, though.
I would say I've everything I've heard is that it's incredible, and I fully believe that
for sure. But yeah, I'm excited that Blumhouse is getting into games, because it also to me, especially because we've talked about like how much companies are losing money and having to fire people. It shows that they're successful in what they've been doing, and so much so that they feel confident that they can get into an industry that's kind of losing money. So that's promising to me.
I think, if nothing else, this just might be a very low stakes experiment to start with.
Yeah.
Like, hey, can we have one of these that hits and goes big?
Yeah.
And will that
The cost of the smaller ones.
right, and will it be worth our time?
Yeah.
Right. And so, yeah, it's cool to see somebody like that try.
Yeah.
Especially in the funding these indie games, right? Like they're not going in and, hey, we're going to try to make a big AAA game and compete directly with Sony and Microsoft. We're going to like try to fund these smaller games.
Yeah.
Which are the games that usually struggle, financially.
For sure.
Let's see. We saw the DLC for Alan Wake 2 called Night Springs, and then that was released the next day. Phantom Blade Zero, Slitterhead, and Dune Awakening all had trailers. Slitterhead's maybe the most interesting of those because it has you sort of like jumping bodies. You're like sort of a ghost apparition that can like jump from one body to another.
It looks absolutely terrifying. Yeah.
And then you're fighting monsters, right? Like, and so I think you're doing this through, it looks like Tokyo that you're going through. And
visually, it looks like a really cool game.
yeah. Then they showed off Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Rita's Rewind. So these are the people at Digital Eclipse who have been focused very much in like sort of game preservation, but like here they are making an entirely new game, but very much in the style of like a 16-bit side scroller beat 'em up, a belt scroller.
Yeah, if Infinity Nikki was the one that I watched that I was like, this is Alicia, this is the one that I watched that I was like, this is Justin.
Well, when I saw this, I immediately like messaged OJ, and because OJ's a big Power Rangers fan, and I was like, okay, well, this is combining two things that you like. And we don't get a whole lot of Power Rangers games anymore.
For sure.
But yeah, this has a very sort of 16-bit style, sort of like that Ninja Turtles game Shredder's Revenge that came out a year or so ago. I think the thing that most got me excited about this game, like that's exciting to have that. I don't care much about the Power Rangers license, but it looked very good as a beat 'em up. But then was like the varied gameplay. So there's parts where it showed you like riding a cycle, and it had it sort of like a, you know, it looked like Hang On for the Sega Genesis or something, like behind the back, and it was using that sort of scrolling technique and everything. And then it had parts where you were in the Megazord, but you were fighting monsters from a first-person perspective. But all of this done in 16-bit graphical style. And it just looked like a very much a labor of love, like that was kind of playing around with the tropes of the genre. And so that's what made me excited for it more than anything.
Yeah.
And it looked like one of those games that would be a fun party game. Then
I'm just laughing because I'm seeing the next one on the list.
So we mentioned earlier that when Cuffbust was shown off, my initial reaction, this looks like a fake game. Even more so, when Killer Bean came on, when I started watching this trailer live as the event was streaming and everything, I thought, this is an ad for something. This is going to be a Mountain Dew ad. And they're going to show me this incredibly fake-looking video game, and then they're going to, like, he's going to pull out a Mountain Dew and drink it, and then he's going to like beat all the bad guys. But it is not. It is an actual real game about a bean that is an assassin, a hitman.
And please note, this is a coffee bean, and so it looks very much like a butt. Like
it does. It has little butt cheeks, like on the back of it.
It has his little bean butt cheeks.
And this game looks so weird. And then they said it's a roguelike.
Yeah.
Which makes it even weirder. But like this game has your character, like you are attacking people, they throw a grenade, you jump into the air, catch the grenade and throw it back at them.
Yeah.
There's a scene where your character is in a building, like a skyscraper, jumps out the window and shoots through the window of the room next to it where the character is that they're trying to assassinate. It's like John Wick as a bean.
Yeah. We made the joke, or I made the joke earlier that it's like somebody watched Mission Impossible and then Sausage Party like back to back and was like, you know what? There's something here. Minus anything inappropriate, X-rated. You know what I'm saying?
That we know of.
I mean, sure. Yeah.
We were talking before the show too, and like I just can't get over the early thousands edginess of the dialogue. Like,
Yes.
It's the shadow agency.
You
made me what I am.
Yeah, I mean, it's
This
so,
bean is going to take down the shadow agency because they turned him into an assassin.
It has such a weird look to it, and it has such an over-the-top presentation that it just looks like a fake game.
It kind of looks like. Did y'all ever see the show Bump in the Night?
No, but I remember the trailers. I remember that show.
It was this weird show that used to play when I was a kid on like Saturday morning cartoon kind of thing, where it was almost like a claymation thing, but like in a real world backdrop, and it was just it was one of those that like you couldn't tell if it was real or not, and I'm pretty certain I watched it more times than not because of the storyline, but because I was like, what is happening? It's like young me discovering, I don't know, something that should be trippy before I can take anything that would help me trippy. You know what I'm saying? And so I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks weird.
I mean, I thought when this trailer came on, I thought, am I hallucinating? Yeah. Is this real?
I saw that title and went, oh man. And then I looked up the trailer and was like, oh man, I need to watch a playthrough of this. Mm-hmm. I need people's live reactions to this game.
Let's see. They showed off a trailer for the game Karen, which
Cairn. Unclear.
I think it's Karen because it's the things that you use to clasp ropes, to run ropes onto rocks.
Oh, yeah.
So
why is it pronounced Karen like the go get your manager Karen though?
I don't know. That's how I've always heard that pronounced. So I don't know.
That's one of those words I've never heard pronounced. So I'm like, I'm totally guessing.
So it is a rock climbing game. It looked interesting. I mean, I'm always interested when somebody like makes a game that has sort of unique, different gameplay to it. And so this one certainly looked like it had that.
Yeah.
And then they showed off a trailer for Shadow Cross Sonic Generations. This is the remake of Sonic Generations, but they're adding a Shadow, I guess, sort of campaign to it.
I'll say it's basically doing what the Bowser's World did for whatever
Bowser's Fury.
Bowser's Fury did for that Super Mario game. I think the one thing that I think is interesting about this is at the end they were like, okay, here, if you pre-order, you get the classic Sonic, you get the Sonic Adventure skin, but then some of the other specials, one of the other things you can get is a Terios skin, which Terios was the design and name for Shadow before they finalized Shadow the Hedgehog. So I'm like, that's kind of neat because it was very much like something where it's like, okay, it's generations. Like you have classic Sonic and modern Sonic, but like there's no real distinction between what's classic Shadow versus modern Shadow. It's just Shadow. So I think the Terios skin is a neat way to kind of play with that. But
well, and that's the premise of Sonic Generations, right?
Exactly.
Like that you get to play the classic Sonic versus the new version of Sonic. So they kind of had to do something like that with Shadow.
And it's like I don't think that they're doing like, because it's just a skin, so it's not gonna be like, oh, here's your Terios levels and here's your Shadow levels. But I do think it's a neat way to be like, okay, yeah, this is making it make some semblance of sense to do a Shadow in the Sonic Generations game.
Right. And then we had the Xbox showcase. So they showed off Age of Mythology Retold. I really like the original Age of Mythology, so I'm excited that they're doing this remake of that. They showed off a new trailer for Avowed, which is their Skyrim-like first-person role-playing game. They showed off Call of Duty Black Ops 6, obviously. They showed off Doom: The Dark Ages, so this is the next Doom game, which is really kind of weird because they own the rights to Heretic and Hexen, which were basically like Doom in the Dark Ages, Doom with magic and medieval stuff. But I sort of get like those names don't have the cachet of Doom. So this looks like, hey, we're going to make a new Doom, but it's actually going to be Heretic and Hexen. It shows you with a shield that's like basically a chainsaw shield, and you like pull a rope on it, and the blades start going around the edge of it, and then you're throwing it like Captain America at your enemies.
That's amazing.
It looks a little bit more kind of open battle space than the past two Doom games have been. So less of the tight corridors, more kind of big open areas that they show you battling in. And then it ends with you on a dragon flying around a level. And maybe even the bigger surprise than all of that, they announced that this is coming to Xbox. Obviously, they own these developers. They own id Software. But it's also coming to PlayStation 5 at launch.
Yeah.
So this
starting to see some of that cross-station release.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably the most bold move they have made so far of, hey, we are taking one of our properties and at launch, we are just launching this as a multi-platform title.
Yeah.
And this is one of their biggest name brand IPs. This is not like some smaller game. They're doing this with Doom. They showed off a trailer for Fable and Gears of War E-Day. So this is going to be a prequel to the Gears of War franchise. They showed off a trailer for Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, which, as we talked about, is like basically a 5-minute cinematic.
Yeah, it looks like it captures the spirit of Indiana Jones so perfectly. And yet I cannot help but wonder why it's not just an animated movie. like the minuscule portion, we've talked before about like, why did you get Harrison Ford's likeness if you're just going to do first person? Well, now we know, because it's going to be fantastic cutscenes, but I feel like this is the kind of thing that I'm just going to look up all the cutscenes and just watch those rather than even watching the gameplay at all.
Yeah, so this is from Machine Games, the people who make the modern Wolfenstein games. Those are fantastic games, so I give them the benefit of the doubt, but I am still not sold on the first-person perspective of this game.
Yeah.
Mostly because, Indiana Jones, I don't think of as a shooter-style game. Like, it's more of an adventure-style game, Indiana Jones.
Well, like...
So I don't know how that's going to work in first person.
You think about, like, the end teases... People in the comments were like, okay, the Raiders rock is definitely going to be the tutorial portion. But it's like, yeah, you put that in first person. If you're running away from the rock, like, it's not cool in first person. You're just running, unless you're like turning back and looking at it constantly. Right. Like, I feel like you need an outside perspective, and they could prove me wrong, but right now I'm like, I'm here for the Nazi dude saying choo choo, and that's about it.
Do not take that comment out of context.
Yes, please recognize that comment is about Indiana Jones and the Great Circle.
I am here for the Nazi dude saying choo choo. They showed a trailer for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. This is when they showed this off last time. I thought this was an expansion, but this is a full new game. I think the thing that was most striking about this is just the number of varied gameplay styles that they showed. Mm-hmm. So, like, not just flying a plane, but they showed you, like...
Search and rescue,
crop dusting, fighting forest fires... Like, really doing a lot of different stuff.
Helicopter, like...
Yeah. It really feels like gamifying that game more, right? Like, okay, well, we know we have the sim enthusiast, but can we get this to be a game that the casual player will want to play more? And let's give them something to do other than fly or just fly. Yeah. So that is exciting to me from that perspective. We finally got our first look at the new Perfect Dark game. This is also a first-person game like the classic Perfect Dark games, but this has taken on a lot of different sort of gameplay styles. So it looks like a little bit of, you have a little bit of kind of first-person parkour mixed in there. You have a little bit of sort of kind of open-world exploration mixed in there. I will say that I have two reactions to this game. One, this game looks amazing. I really want to play this game. But two is that demo shown in the trailer looks very scripted. And it looks like one of those trailers that you see at E3 or Summer Games Fest and you go, that looks amazing, but is it actually going to play like that, or is it playing like that because they are, they have very much planned out how they're going to play through this.
Yeah.
But that's exciting to see. They showed off our first real game footage of South of Midnight.
Was this an older trailer? Because I swear I've seen this before.
So they had a trailer before that just showed the cinematic parts with the animation.
Yes,
The sort of it looks almost like stop motion animation. Yeah.
It looks amazing. Like I'm really excited about this game. Just the story and like the art style. It looks like my kind of game.
So it shows you kind of like in the bayou, and you're riding on the back of a giant fish, and then you get off and you have to like go into this church, but like there's a giant alligator that's chasing you.
Yeah.
It like the gameplay looks amazing. That looks like a whole lot of fun. I want to point out specifically that there is a black female protagonist, which I think is particularly notable with this game because you don't see that in a whole lot of video games. But the weird thing about it is those cutscenes don't match the style of the actual gameplay, and that's very jarring.
Fair.
So like that's my one criticism of it, but I will say like the actual game looks, really cool. Mm-hmm. And I like the sort of style of it. I like the fact that you're riding on the back of this fish and then,
come up against a giant alligator to get into church, as one does in Louisiana.
Honestly, yeah.
But like all that's set in like a sort of realistic presentation, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not a fantastical. You're not playing like a cartoon character.
Yeah,
you're not
it's
playing
not Princess
Brer
and the
Rabbit.
Frog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that is cool.
Let's see. They showed a trailer for State of Decay 3 that looks like more State of Decay. I really liked State of Decay 2. I never played it as much as I would have liked, but those are kind of fun sort of survival zombie games. Mm-hmm. They showed off a trailer for Dragon Age: The Veilguard. So I think this game has a horrible trailer. I think that trailer looked very sort of winking and nudging at the player with a very sort of like goofy style to it, which doesn't fit the sort of older Dragon Age games. Mm. But people who played this game at the event said that the tone of the actual game is very different than that trailer and feels much more like the classic Dragon Age games, which were very sort of like straightforward role-playing games.
Cool.
Let's see. They showed a trailer for Life is Strange Double Exposure. Mm-hmm. So we mentioned this a little bit earlier. I know both of you were excited about this. I will say another game with a female protagonist, which is like kind of cool to see. Like we're getting that more often in these games.
For sure.
Well, it's really interesting because, like, okay, I will be real. The way that they animate that Max looks in this game, I did not recognize her. I don't think she looks like Max at all from the first game. Like, yes, she's an adult now, but the face shape is wrong and that bothers me. But also, I'm just so excited to come back to Max Caulfield, and I'm really intrigued to see, because the big thing with Life is Strange is the different endings. Yeah. And so and then with this one where they're like parallel realities, of course everyone in the comments is saying like, oh well, one reality is gonna be that ending A and the other reality is gonna be ending B. But the developers have said, no, you choose early on in the game which ending you did.
It's kind of like those games that I want to say they're Dark Anthology. Yeah, because it was the Batman. No, it wasn't Dark Anthology. Who did the Batman series?
The Telltale games.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Where like they released like 4 different games, Batman, back to back to back. And like when you played the second game, it would pick up on whatever choices or whatever you had done from the first game.
The episodic releases. They did the Walking Dead and all those style games.
So it almost has that kind of vibe without necessarily being that, right? Like that you have to choose at the beginning which direction you want to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Life is Strange is one of those weird franchises that just keeps going.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it has lost a lot of the mainstream press over the years. Like it doesn't get as much attention, but like those games are, they keep putting those out and I feel like they're very well liked by the fan base.
Yeah. Anybody that I talk to about those games that's heard of them really, really enjoys them. Yeah,
and I really like the first one. I played the first Life is Strange and I feel bad I didn't play the follow-up ones.
I don't think I did.
Even though I liked that first one. And so like maybe this will be a chance for me to get back into them. I like the setup of the sort of going back and forth between the different realities and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm like, I think it's really, really cool that on the one hand that we've gotten to see other characters besides Max, but like coming back to her now and being, like I said, I was watching a playthrough of the first one and being like, oh my gosh, this is such a time capsule.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I really want to see how this one, are they going to make it very similar time capsule-y? Are they going to point back to and reflect on how much of a time capsule that first one is? Can we please get at least one Hela in there? Like, that's all I need.
you know that game was made by people in San Francisco.
Yup.
Let's see. They had a trailer for another new game called Mixtape. This gave me very strong Life is Strange vibes.
Yes.
Just, I think in part because of the female protagonist, but also just like the sort of focus on the like relationship side with the characters.
Just set in the 80s.
Yeah. You know, this game really leans into its soundtrack.
It's like having a banger soundtrack.
Right. Like they advertised that as part of the trailer. The actual gameplay of this game was kind of weird to me because it shows you a lot of like kind of skateboarding or riding a shopping cart down the street. So it looks like a lot of it's going to be sort of kind of racing mechanics. But then it also showed some elements where you were like from a side scrolling perspective running through a yard, very much like the ending of Ferris Bueller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it looks like it's going to mix up the sort of gameplay that you're doing with it, and also have this sort of supernatural side to it also going on.
This was one that I was really confused by the trailer, but I'm really excited for it.
Yeah.
Because I have no idea how the gameplay is going to be, but not in like a oh, you just spent the whole time showing me cutscenes and I don't know what the gameplay is going to be, but just like I'm so into the concept that I'm like, whatever the gameplay ends up being, it's going to be cool.
Well, and also like a game that like really relies on the soundtrack to the point where the whole game is called Mixtape.
Right.
Yeah.
Is just exciting to me. And while that is not necessarily the, I don't know, the era of music that I constantly listen to, I was listening to it, or as I was listening to it, I was like, oh man, this is going to be really cool. Like, and then the character sold me. So I think that that's what has me anticipating it is like it made me want to learn more, even if it was confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the sort of leaning into the coming of age, you know, it has
very John Hughes movie.
Yeah, it has those vibes of maybe a bit of the kids on bikes because it's in the 1980s, and you know, it does have you kind of exploring on skateboards and everything. So yeah, I mean, it has a neat vibe to it, which is not something I say about every indie game I see.
Right.
And this very much has that look. One other thing I wanted to point out here, they did show a trailer for Stalker 2, Heart of Chernobyl. The reason I think this is particularly notable is because Stalker is a game made in Ukraine. So this game was delayed when the war in Ukraine, it was originally supposed to come out like a year or two ago when the war in Ukraine began. And so they have apparently finished this game or are very close to finishing and ready to ship this game. So it's actually going to come out. You know, we talk about how bad developers have it in the rest of the world, and certainly they do with the layoffs and everything, but these developers have it even worse. They're literally trying to make a game while their country is at war. So this is kind of a nice end to this story that this game is actually getting finished. The last thing about the Xbox showcase is they showed off 3 new pieces of hardware, which are all bizarre to me. They showed off a 1 terabyte Xbox Series X that's white and digital, so there's no drive on it. They showed off a 2 terabyte Xbox Series X that has the disk drive and comes in a color called Galaxy Black, which is basically the black console with like green specks all over it. And then a 1 terabyte Xbox Series S in white. There's already a 1 terabyte Xbox Series S, but it comes in black. So now they're putting out one that's white. This is a whole lot of new hardware. It doesn't look like they didn't announce any price cuts to go along with this. So usually at this point in a console's lifespan, if you're putting out new hardware that's basically exactly the same, you're doing it to cut the cost.
Yeah, that's bizarre.
I would think if you are putting out an all digital Xbox Series X, you're putting that out to cut the cost, but already that system is selling at $450 regularly. You can catch it on sale for $400. So if you're putting out an all digital version, what price point are you going to hit with that?
Yeah.
For me, it would have to be sub 400.
Yes.
Yeah.
So kind of weird. Maybe when they announce pricing and more details, that'll make more sense. A few other details here before we wrap up the show. Take-Two announced they are developing a FIFA 2K5 game. So FIFA, who abandoned Electronic Arts because Electronic Arts wouldn't pay them the billions of dollars they wanted, they announced that they were going to go and develop their own video game. And it looks like they figured out that's a lot harder than they thought. So they went to Take-Two, who knows a thing or two about making sports video games, and they're going to develop a soccer game for them. Let's see. A Google employee has been found out that they were accessing Nintendo's hidden YouTube Direct videos. So for those who don't know, when you upload a video to YouTube, you can not immediately publish that video. You can just have it on your back end. You can even schedule it to be published on a certain date at a certain time. So when movie studios or video game companies are doing these like live events or something, they don't upload the trailer right before because it's too hard to know how long it's going to take to process, particularly if you're uploading something in HD or 4K. So
we're going to have to deal with YouTube's auto copyright claims for music.
Sure. So they upload these videos days in advance, right? Or weeks in advance in some cases. They upload the video, they have it unpublished, and then they schedule it to go live at a certain time on a certain day. An employee of YouTube was going on to these accounts, and apparently employees of YouTube can view your hidden videos or your unpublished videos at any time, was going on to Nintendo's account, watching these videos in advance, and then leaking the information. So that this is where, before Nintendo Directs, some of those leaks were coming from. It was an inside job at YouTube from a Google employee. This was between 2013, 2018. That employee has been dismissed and no longer works at YouTube. However, YouTube hasn't fixed this vulnerability. And they didn't announce as part of this that they were really making any changes to make this, more protected. So that ties into our next thing. When I was making this rundown yesterday, it was, hey, there's probably going to be a Nintendo Direct sometime this week. This morning, Nintendo announced, hey, there's a Nintendo Direct tomorrow morning. This sort of makes you wonder, is Nintendo going to hold back and upload that video at the very last possible moment, knowing that this is a problem and not wanting that stuff to get leaked? We should say the Nintendo Direct tomorrow is supposed to be 40 minutes. It is supposed to be focused on games coming out in the second half of 2024. They have announced, a couple months ago when they announced they were going to do this Direct, that there would be nothing about the Switch 2 or whatever it's going to be called. So don't expect anything about the new console. This will be just games coming out on the Switch in the second half of the year. I wonder, any guesses what might be coming out? Any hopes of what might be coming out for Switch the second half of the year?
Honestly, no idea, just because the not releasing the console has kind of thrown me. And it's what I talked about earlier with what do you release on a console that you're about to update, right? The Lego thing makes sense. But
we might see more of that game.
Yeah, which would be cool, like especially seeing it from the perspective of playing it on the Switch as opposed to the PlayStation or what have you is cool. But otherwise, I have no idea.
Yeah, I think the other thing I might expect, and I don't even know if I fully expect this, but if they're planning to release Pokemon Legends ZA on both the Switch and its successor, then I could see them doing a trailer with more info on that. But
they've already announced that game, so I feel like they would feel okay showcasing something from that game.
Yeah, give us some more idea of what the plot is.
Right.
But other than that, I don't know.
I mean, there are supposedly all those sort of remakes that Nintendo has just had sitting on a shelf for years. Modern Nintendo does this. They make games and just put them on a shelf till they have a convenient time to release them. Mm-hmm. This year seems like the most convenient time.
Just pull those out,
since they delayed the Switch 2 hardware. Mm-hmm. So some of that has been, there's supposed to be a remakes. The remakes that they did on the Wii U of Zelda,
Twilight
Princess, and Wind Waker, that they might bring those over to the Switch finally, because then basically every Zelda game ever made would be available on the Switch.
That makes sense.
I would also absolutely buy Twilight Princess, even if it's in the last year of the Switch's lifespan.
Yeah, so, and then, there's rumors of other sort of remakes that they might be working on with that. One of the ones that's gathered some steam is that they might do an F-Zero GX, the GameCube version. So they might do a remake of that. Not a full remake, but
but just
an improved version that would run on modern Switch. And then one of the things I think almost certainly we'll see here, this would be my sort of lock of a new announcement, is they have not announced a Mario and Sonic at the Olympics game for this year, and it is an Olympics year.
Right.
So
yeah, we'll probably see that.
Yeah.
I imagine we'll see a Mario and Sonic at the Olympics game
for sure.
tomorrow as part of this.
So a lot of remake stuff, basically.
Yeah, I think we might get one big new game that we don't know anything about, but I
would think Legends ZA is the one big new game I would expect.
But we already know about that. That's already been announced.
That's
so
true.
I'm saying some unannounced game we might get. But I don't think it'll be on the scale of a Zelda or a Mario, most likely.
For sure.
This is going to be
a new F-Zero game.
Yeah, it could be something like that, right? But if they're doing a remake of that other F-Zero game, they won't do both of those. And one or the other of that we might get. And the last thing here is, this is personally very exciting to me. Jackbox Games, who makes the Jackbox Party Pack games and have put out 10 of those, I guess now, has announced they're developing a universal front end to those for the Steam version of those games. So they're only releasing this on Steam. But basically, when they release this, you will download it. It'll be a free download. And if you have multiple of those party packs, you'll just be able to load up this front end and play any of the individual games from any party pack.
That's awesome.
That is so needed. Thank you, Jackbox Games.
You're right. When I stream, most of the time what I stream is Jackbox. So that's actually very helpful.
Well, and it's very frustrating if you play those at a party, even knowing which game is this part of?
Yes.
Which party pack is this part of, right?
Right.
So being able to just have all those lumped together and just go through and select which one you want to play, to me seems infinitely more convenient.
For sure.
So yeah, that's some good news. All right, that does it for this week's episode, except for our big question. Our big question is, hey, it is E3 season. So what has been your favorite game so far? Obviously, we don't have whatever Nintendo might announce tomorrow, which, is Nintendo, so they can always blow our minds. But of what we've talked about today, which of these games has you most excited? Alicia, why don't we start with you? What?
I'm going to cheat and say one from each. I think from the PlayStation...
Alicia, that is not the question. No, go ahead.
I'll say, because I'm having a hard time picking between these three. I think from PlayStation State of Play, it's Infinity Nikki. I'm I don't even have a PS5, but I might pester my sister to buy that game so I can play it when I'm at home. I think from Summer Game Fest, it is the Harry Potter Quidditch Champions, because I'm the nostalgia for playing that Quidditch game as a child. And then from the Xbox Showcase, it's got to be Life is Strange Double Exposure, because I am so incredibly hyped for that. I can't even really put it into words.
All right. Christina, how about you?
So I also have 3, and what sucks is that they're all 3 from the Xbox, which I do not have.
Well, all those games will probably come to PC.
Okay.
So.
Oh, yeah. True. The 3 that I'm most excited about is that South of Midnight. It just looks like, again, a story that that seems very me. Life is Strange, and the Mixtape one looks really cool.
All right. Well, I guess we're picking 3, so I'll go ahead and pick 3. The one I came in here to say is Astro Bot. I'm super excited about Astro Bot. That is a game that looks like a day one purchase for me.
For sure, yeah.
I love really great platformers, and that one on the version, Playroom, whatever it's called, on the PlayStation 5 is, I think, again, like I said earlier, still one of the best exclusives on the PlayStation 5. That's just a fantastic game. And them being given the opportunity to make a full game in that style has me very excited. That trailer, any fears I had about what that game might be, the like big colorful levels and bosses and the varied gameplay styles just has me super excited for it.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
If I have to pick something from Summer Games Fest,
We don't have
I'll say
to.
it's okay.
I'm not twisting your arm or anything.
I mean, look,
We all know it's Killer Bean.
Well, actually, it is Killer Bean. If I have to pick something that just has me like actually really interested and excited, it's Killer Bean. I think Cuffbust looks fantastic.
Yeah,
But
especially if it's one that, again, all of us can end up playing together
Right.
at some point and talking about. That would be really cool.
But Killer Bean, I think, just has me excited because I don't know what that game is.
It's more curiosity.
Yeah. It's like one of those things like, if Killer Bean was driving around an unmarked white van, I would definitely get in.
No.
Oh, no, you did not.
Get in, little kid. I'll let you.
No,
No,
stop.
honestly, for Justin, it would be like free kittens. They'd be like, well, I'll check them out.
Free kittens, one of them is Garfield.
I like how I'm a complete idiot in your story. Like, yeah, I'll check them out. I'm not denying that I would check out the kittens. It's just I like that my IQ and the way I speak dropped about 50 points.
They're like, hey, we've got Garfield in the front seat,
No.
more kittens in the back
Wait.
seat, and Killer Bean in the trunk.
Listen, Justin, we all have our weaknesses.
I'm just like, in your story, I'm the third string offensive lineman. It's like, oh, okay. Justin liked kittens.
Quite like that. What's your third game?
My third game, and I think just because we haven't seen it, I'm so suspicious of that Perfect Dark. I want that game to be good, but I don't know what it'll be. I think South of Midnight, I like that initial trailer. I like the style of it, and then actually seeing what that game is and how it's going to lean into like sort of the the fantastical mixed into the real world.
Yeah.
Looks really exciting.
For sure.
And so that was a game that initial trailer got my attention, and then now seeing this trailer actually has me hyped for that game.
Yeah.
But yeah, so a good Summer Games Fest, I think overall. Like, I think the fact that all of us can pick a game from each of these shows. Sorry, Christina, not all of us.
I could. Astro Bot looks lovely. Any of the Bloomhouse games is going to get me excited. Cuffbust looks like fun. The three that I most gravitate towards are unfortunately Xbox.
That's understandable, right? And
They're unfortunately Xbox.
well, and the cool thing about Xbox now is those games are probably going to come other places.
For sure. And I have a PC, so I can probably play them.
Well, if not PC, they'll come to PlayStation maybe eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and that's an exciting time, I think, kind of looking back at this show, one of the exciting things is the number of games that are multi-platform. So we talked about Lego Horizon. We talked about Doom. Obviously, lots of these Xbox games are going to go multi-platform. It makes it a very exciting time to be playing video games.
Absolutely.
Because you're no longer like so linked to exclusives.
Yeah.
And in some ways, that's almost like helps with accessibility a little bit because
A lot of it.
like Switch is a cheaper console, and so for
Sure.
a lot of folks, like that's what they have because that's all they can afford to have. And I know that
Hi, it's me. I'm a lot of folks.
I know graphics wise, it can't handle a lot of the things that we've talked about today, but I mean, the games that it can handle, it does the job, minus
Minus Mortal Kombat 1.
Right? And, simultaneously, I play a lot of Division. I've talked about that game before. And the person that I usually play with, we've played it on PlayStation, but we mostly play on PC, mainly because she has RA, rheumatoid arthritis. And being able to use keyboard and mouse is so much more accessible for her than trying to hold on to a controller. And so I know that obviously that PC can't solve all the accessibility issues when it comes to controller, but for some folks, it is more comfortable or easier to use that kind of thing.
Well, and I think you hit on a big point that accessibility is about having choices,
Yes.
Yes.
right?
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, something like, and when we talk about accessibility, we usually are thinking about, disability.
Yes.
But like accessibility is also like financial.
Exactly.
Yep.
Like, so having these games across multiple different consoles, multiple different places to play them, right, means more people are going to play these games.
Yeah.
And I think Sony doing the Lego Horizons is really smart.
Yes.
Because that game has a lot of people who want to play it and can't go spend $500 on a PlayStation 5, which I completely understand.
Yep.
Yeah.
And making that game, expanding that fan base, right,
Yes.
makes a whole lot of sense.
Absolutely.
So it's a cool time to be playing video games. There are certainly negative things in the industry, but it's also lots of cool things, lots of varied games. Like I mentioned, lots of games starring women, which is something we have not normally seen in video games. Certainly, it used to be we get maybe one game a year. Now we're getting multiple of those games.
Right.
Yeah.
And ones that look like really, really cool. Like
Right.
of course, like Life is Strange is really great, but then that South of Midnight
Right.
looks stellar, and she looks like a badass. So
Yeah. And we're getting Mixtape and we're getting Princess Peach
Yay.
all in the same year,
We're getting
right?
Infinity Nikki. We're
Right.
getting We're getting so much. And
variety
it's so,
of women.
I was going to say, it's a variety of women, and that makes me really, really happy.
Yeah. It's not just the Lara Croft trope.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
Yeah.
So, all right, that does it for this week. We will probably not be back immediately soon, but probably maybe sometime in July we'll be back with a new episode because we are all traveling and have different responsibilities over the summer. It's hard to get together and record these podcasts, but we certainly want to do one here with following up on everything with Summer Games Fest. And so check out that Nintendo Direct tomorrow, and we'll be back relatively soon to talk more video games with you.